Welcome to episode 3 of the Woodwind Doubling Channel. Today's episode, the Essential Double. What would the Essential Double be? The clarinet. Why the clarinet? You're going to see clarinet on just about every single Woodwind doubling book you ever run into. Take a show like Anything Goes. All 4 of the Woodwind books on the current touring edition have clarinet, and not just some clarinet. All of those books have significant clarinet solos. Even the double reed book has really high Dixieland-style clarinet playing in it. There's nobody who comes out unscathed in that one. You really got to be able to play the instrument. Currently, I'm doing chorus line at the Stratford Festival, and if you watched in episode number 2, where I did the time lapse, you'd see that I'm playing clarinet in there as well as contrabass clarinet. All of the other members of the Woodwind section also play clarinet on that show, and all of us have significant solo work on them. For example, in chorus line, the first 2 books play flutes together, or flute and piccolo. The third book could be on oboe. That means that the primary clarinet passages in those sections are going to be played by the 4th woodwind player, me. There's significant solos in the third book as well. He's the oboist, but he's also got important clarinet solos. Again, if the first 2 books are playing flutes or flute and piccolo, the third book could be playing clarinet, and meanwhile I'm playing bassoon. So the responsibilities shift around. Everyone in a woodwind section in professional theater is expected to have really good clarinet chops. Obviously, some players are better than others. They'll have a better sound, better technique. But you really need to have a pretty strong game on the clarinet. That means being able to play with facility in the bottom of the instrument, through the break, right up in the upper register, and way up into the stratosphere. We're talking about at least an A way above the staff. That's like 4 lines above the staff. You should be able to play up there fairly easily, at least do runs and rips up to it. You want to have good technical facility in all keys. In music theater, we don't usually rely on using A and B flat clarinets like orchestral players do, because it really does help smooth out the key signatures on a lot of things. So that means we need to be playing in more remote keys. You need to be pretty comfortable playing in F sharp and C sharp and D flat and things like that. You really need to know your way around the horn properly. Intonation is very important. Characteristic tone color is very important too. Clarinet has a much more defined, I'd say, narrower range of acceptable tone colors. It sounds like I'm knocking it, but I'm not really. Saxophone, we have a very, very wide palette. You can have things from a classical, almost stuffy sound on one end to really outrageous, hard rock and roll sounds that have quite a lot of brightness to them. In music theater, saxophone is a little more constrained in its use as well, although there's still room for bright rock and roll sounds depending on the shows you're playing. But clarinet always has to sound like a clarinet, and that means not necessarily like you've got to play the Mozart concerto all the time, but you need to be able to make that type of sound. You need to be able to make a Dixieland type of sound, and you need to do it with one setup, because you could be doing the same sounds within one show on that similar gear. Nice refined classical sound. To something a little more swinging, a little more hard-edged, all in the same setup. So you need to spend some time on your clarinet. Super important instrument. It gets glossed over by a lot of people because they figure they're going to be playing goose eggs. Yes, there are some shows like that. If you're playing a 3rd or 4th reed book on something like Guys and Dolls, yeah, you're going to have a fair amount of whole notes and things like that. But you never know. Sometimes you turn the page and all of a sudden you've got everything. You've got the lead part, you've got a solo part. That can happen in just about any show. I remember playing The Producers, and there's a little sort of Glenn Miller-ish reed section, and you've got 5 reed players. You got 2 altos, 2 tenors, and the baritone player. And a Glenn Miller sound is 2 altos, 2 tenors, and clarinet. Rather than having somebody else switch their saxophone around, you guessed it, the baritone player is the one who's going to be playing those clarinet leads. Even in a big band, you're liable to run into some Glenn Miller lead type things. So it's really important that you be able to get, as well as getting a characteristic sound, high register control, a stylistically appropriate vibrato. Now, when we play a lot of music theater, we're playing straight sounds, background pads, vocal accompaniments. We don't usually use a lot of vibrato unless it's asked for specifically on the part. But if you're playing something like Moonlight Serenade, you need to know how to make that type of sound and have that kind of control on clarinet. Fortunately, we're going to be delving into that type of stuff in a lot of future episodes. We'll be talking about stylistic vibrato and also gear and getting started on clarinet for not only for saxophone players, but for people coming from other reed instruments as well, because it's a little bit of a different feel. Even for saxophonists, a lot of the time they're just not prepared for what the clarinet needs. It needs to be approached as its own instrument, not trying to make it like a saxophone in the way it's played. So, look for future episodes where we delve into that. We're also going to be talking a lot about all of the other woodwind instruments too. And happy doubling, everybody.